Grab your cocktail and get ready for this episode of the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast. Welcome to the Old Fashion Masonic Podcast, where we talk all things Freemasons while drinking an old fashioned. I'm Brian, and I've got our first California Mason on the podcast. So all you Texans, all you Southerners, don't have an opinion formed already. Oh my God, it's a damn California. Don't do it. Listen to this dude, and you're going to have a newfound appreciation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Worshipful Brother Gabriel Mariscal. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Worshipful Brian. It's an amazing opportunity to be here. Thank you so much. Like I mentioned before, I'm an admirer of your channel. I think you produce some amazing content, some very relevant content that I think Masonry needs. So thank you for having me on today.
I appreciate it. Now I feel like I owe you money after that plug. Holy hell. So, all right. So you've seen the episodes. So, on the podcast, we like to know really as much about the man as we do the Mason. So let's slide Masonry to the side, my friend, and tell us who you are.
All right. So it's an interesting question. So I was born and raised in California. I spent about a little over a decade in the military and wanted to do something different, right? I wasn't trying to go back overseas, and I kind of had been there, done that, and I felt like I trained the next generation to do that. So it was a good time for me to leave, so I stepped away and kind of fell into the business world. And so now I'm working in commercial properties, so do a lot of things with big box store clients, banks, national retailers, and so that's kind of what I do for my 9 to 5. Although, and I know we're trying to not mix Masonry with it, but it's so difficult.
Hard sometimes.
It all kind of connects. It all connects, and but yeah, that's what I do in my 9 to 5. And I'm married. I have a blended family, beautiful blended family. I have 3 daughters, 2 stepdaughters, and a stepson. 3 guinea pigs, 2 dogs, and just living life, man. We're just loving life in California. We're here for the weather. So.
Well, you left out a partridge in a pear tree after all that.
Right? Yeah.
So great. So we talk about off camera to really, for men that are in a committed relationship, part of really the success in Masonry is having a great support system at home that, frankly, I'll use this word, allows us to go be Masons, right? And do what
100%.
we do. So the support system, again, we talked about it, and I hope the Masons listening, again, it doesn't mean that a single person can't be as successful, but it sure does help when your people at home are bought into the mission, right?
100%. 100%. And I agree. Every time, my wifey, she kind of jokes about it, like, oh, I plussed you up. Like she did. I was a single Mason, a Master of the Lodge, 2 years running, and a couple of things, and I was trying to be, relevant and stay with the times, and not until my wife came on board where they saw the whole package. And so and part of those first conversations was, babe, I need you to know something about myself. Every Wednesday, at least every Wednesday, and a few other times a month, like this is what I'm doing. Here's why I do it. And it took a few months, and it took some time for her to understand it. But now that she sees it, and now that we are at the Grand Lodge level, she's like the biggest supporter. She's my biggest supporter. So I couldn't do it without her.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I wonder at times, like, I've been married for nearly 30 years. So when I joined Masonry, I was married. And so I had to take away time from her. I wonder if it was a little easier transition because this was part of you when you came on. So it might have made it smoother because you really didn't take anything away from her because that was there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I've been kind of thinking about, because I felt like I was in a different position in the sense that, I was already a mature, kind of, established, younger man. And so that was already a part of me. And now as we're embarking in this tour, in this journey, my mind has went to, how do we train the people who are already married? How do we, I don't want to say train is the wrong word. How do we educate our partners to say, like, this is not just an investment towards your significant other, but it's an investment towards a family, towards a community, towards everything. Yeah. So that's And one of the conversations that my wife and I had was, immediately after Grand Lodge, after this tour of our year of Grand Lodge, like we're gonna, go out and try to build masonry. But I said, I need you right by my side so you could be
Right.
the advocate, you could be the voice for the ladies. So
Yeah.
she
No,
agreed
I
to
think
it.
it's good. Now we're going to slide over to masonry. So masonry has become a big part of your life. Now, when I was in the military, and I've said this on other episodes, I'd heard about masonry, right? And seen it, but for years, I thought it was a black fraternity. And
Me too.
right. And so you'd see and you got, oh, I'm going to lodge. Like, oh, I wonder what that's all about, because a lot of the guys were Qs or anyway, and that was just how it was. So when I
Right.
joined masonry years ago, a buddy
Mhm.
of mine that, we meet once, all of some of our guys, most of our buddies, we meet once a year somewhere in the United States and we hang out. And when I joined, Micah said, oh, I joined masonry. Why didn't you tell me I'd have got you? And I said, dude, I thought it was a black fraternity. And he's like,
Yeah.
we were Prince Hall and da 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 da. I was like, so I couldn't have joined. And at that time, that was a no-fly zone.
Ah,
But this is 30 years ago. Um,
right, right. Yeah.
so, but
Mhm.
it's really interesting. And, obviously I've known Mike for, you know, over 3 decades. And what's interesting, when I became a Mason, our relationship even evolved further. It's so fascinating. And that's where
Yeah.
outsiders think we're cultish. Like, listen, we're the furthest
Yeah.
from it. We will still agree on stuff that doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So, and it's interesting your interpretation of are you guys ancient craft in
We're AF and AM.
Okay, so I was raised out east in Virginia, so very similar concept. Uh, I was stationed out in Washington D.C. I was working with a bunch of people there. There was a bunch of Masons, Prince Hall guys, and I didn't know the difference. And then I had a friend that was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to meet some of my friends." And long story short, he took me to an ancient craft lodge. And again, I didn't know. And I was the youngest guy there. He and I were the youngest dudes there. And we were sitting there with guys from Capitol Hill, the Pentagon. And it was an interesting dynamic of people. And I was like, I don't know if I'm in the right room. Like, these are the guys who I would assume like send guys like me to war, right? But it was completely different. Once you meet a Mason, you realize that the 9 to 5 kind of stays 9 to 5, and people really want to get to know who you are. But anyways, that really kind of inspired my curiosity with Prince Hall. And so one of the things that I personally did, so that year in 2006, when I was raised a Master Mason, was the same year and or close to when the Grand Lodge of Virginia had recognized the Prince Hall. And so I didn't get to go to that ceremony and this and that. I think I just moved by then. But one of my things was, after hearing that, I didn't know. And I was like, well, why are we different? Like, why is there two different things? Why was one accepted and one wasn't, or not recognized? So when I moved down to California, having traveled from the DC area, I traveled as a Mason, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, before I was a California Mason, Texas, and kind of back home to Sacramento. And one of the first things that I did when I got here, aside from like having Masonry kind of tap me on my shoulder again and be like, hey, you've been away for about 5 or 6 years. I don't think you understand the real deepness or the depth of Masonry yet. You should probably come back. So it was interesting, like, because the first lodge I went to was a building that I would see as a kid and never realize it was like a Mason building. And it's
Right.
this historic downtown building, downtown J Street. There's two Templars that are, concrete Templars, beautiful building. And I was always like, that's a neat building. So fast forward, and I end up kind of going back there and saying, oh my God, like Masonry's been with me my entire life. But one of my projects was like, I want to meet Prince Hall in California. Who are these guys? What do they do? So I tried for months trying to connect with the Prince Hall Lodge. Could never connect. And sometimes it's hit and miss with those guys. And so one day I said, you know what? I think this is a day-to-day meet. I think this is a location. And I went there. And I just went there and I just showed up. And I got there an hour before everybody else did. And I started seeing people come in and I said, this is it. Built a relationship with those guys, amazing group of guys. Their lodge is the oldest lodge in California, as a matter of fact. I had no idea. They're called Philomathian Lodge number 2. And so when I met those guys, it was a very dilapidated building. The ceiling tiles were coming down. Like masonry, it is so beautiful internally, right? And I think that we should reflect the beauty of it externally. So
Sure.
after 2 or 3 months visiting with them, getting to know them, having a few guys over, going out with a few guys to dinner and stuff, I said, I have this big, beautiful building downtown Sacramento. It's been here for 150 years. There's no reason why we can't be practicing masonry under the same roof. Some politicking. I happened to be the secretary of the board of directors for that building. I helped, their Grand Lodge connect with our Grand Lodge. Anyways, they're practicing masonry underneath the same building we are in Sacramento. So I was happy about that. That was one of my first things. And this summer, as a matter of fact, we went to their annual communication in Los Angeles, and that's our Grand Master in the Grand Lodge of California is very progressive in the sense that we recognize that masonry is happening in and around us under different banners, but with the same philosophies, the same concepts. So instead of saying no taboo, it's like, let's get to know each other. Let's build a relationship. So that's what I love about California masonry. It's really a melting pot of a lot of different cultures. So. Yep. And sorry, I can nerd out on masonry all day.
No, I'm with you. Well, let's nerd and dial it into you. So walk us through when you joined, when you're a masters, where you're at now, and then let's jump into what we came to talk about.
Oh, sure. So I was raised in 2006. Again, it was a conversation. I had no idea really what masonry was. Went to dinner. I liked my friend. We were hanging out for a while, and we were friends. So that's why he asked me there. And joined masonry. I think it took about 6 months. I was 23, 24 years old. So I still wet behind the ears, and I didn't understand that level of complexity in masonry and who I was. So it was hard for me to understand what masonry was. So I thought it was just a bunch of guys who have interesting jobs with influential kind of connections. And so I was traveling and just meeting people.
You thought it was a networking club.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You guys need some money for charity? Perfect. But it was a networking club. Only till I came back to California. And so the first lodge I walked into is one of the oldest lodges in California. And this lodge was, I hate to say it, it was on its last leg. It's a legacy lodge, and we'll get into that here because I just had
there's a lot of lodges on their last leg that watch this, frankly. So there's a lot of consolidation that may need to happen. That's a whole nother conversation.
For sure. And so it happened. I got back around 2017-ish. I started learning California masonry. What is this? And I was around 33 to 35 years old. And I feel like that's when I was like, I think I get it. But that was because of hours and hours and hours of behind our, and I always have it with me, it's our cipher book, right? And that's not just reading it and going over it and memorizing it, but what does it all mean? How does it apply to me?
There are so many different levels. Once you know how to decipher it, that's the easy part. Now
that's the easy part.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I really got into it and saw the tangible changes that were happening in and around me, right? And so masonry has an interesting way of, and I don't know if it's by osmosis or through training and through deep research that happens, but so that's what I was doing. I was really into what the blue book is, what we call the blue book.
Yep.
And then my chance for master kind of happened. There was an old, we called the old guard regime, right? This is the way we've always done it. And so masonry has an interesting way of clearing out a path for you to make things happen.
If you're open.
And so if you're open to, So we suffered some losses that year. A couple guys demitted, one passed away. A lot of things, but it really cleared the field for us for a 160-something-year-old lodge, right? And then COVID hits. COVID hits a few years later, and I'm like, I'm the master. I was just installed. What do I do? The Grand Lodge of California was saying, hey, here's our we have to follow
protocols.
We have to follow it. Sorry guys, it is what it is. And so while a lot of people thought it was going to be a vacation, I was like, no, man, this is when we have to kick into overdrive. So what do we do? So I had a brother in Sacramento, and his name is Blake. who now actually works for the Grand Lodge as part of our member, not member retention, but like member prospect, So anybody that calls the 1-800 California Masons, they're going to talk to Blake. And we'll get into that, but we put him in there because we want people who are interested in Masonry to talk to a Mason, to talk to somebody who's like, I could tell you about Masonry. Or where do you live? Let me connect you with the closest lodge. I have an understanding of what the lodge characteristics. Anyway, great dude. When everybody told me no, he said yes. That's what I was looking for. I said, bro, I want to do something crazy. I want to go online. He said, let's do it. Let's do it. So we built a little channel on YouTube, and
isn't it so weird though in 2020 to think that that was such a profound thing to go, I don't know, use modern media.
Right.
But we are really, as an old fraternity, I would argue we've got sometimes older philosophies, and we're just so resistant. There's two things that you can guarantee about Masons. One, they don't like the way things are, and two, they don't like change. But those don't mix, right? I hate where we are, but I hate change. Like, all right, well, what in the world? That's probably the hot take of the day.
For sure, right? I love that. I love that. But so and we got pushback. There were some of the older guys who were like, "Why are we doing this?" And so, or why is this lodge going on YouTube? You're telling the secrets of a Mason when essentially we're talking about there's no secret, So
come on, man.
I'm one of those guys that's like, you know what? I'm going to do it until somebody pulls me into an office and I have to explain myself.
Beg for forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. Even then, I'm going to have a quantifiable reason why I did it. Like, guys, trust me. Like, I've led men in and out of combat. Like, you could trust that I'm not going to screw the fraternity, right? So, so that happens, and we just kind of powered through it. At that point, we had, I think people are elevated or attain, different opportunities because of other people, right? So that's why I'm always looking for like the next people. Like, who's the next guy? Who's the next lodge? So somebody was doing that. And it was our assistant grand lecturer. I'm not sure if you guys have that. Some jurisdictions call it like
we've got assistants and grand lecturers.
Okay,
whoever you can get to basically prove up to do it. I mean, we'd love to have 1,000 grand lecturers, and because it takes the pressure off of the 4 or 5 guys that are doing it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't know that he was kind of watching, but he had a pulse on everything in his district, and especially being a Grand Lodge officer. So he was like, hey, I think he told the incoming, Grand Master at the time, like, this guy's doing something different. We should watch him. So that person was, a Grand Master, past Grand Master now. And I think those are the two guys that really was like, I don't know what, Gabe's doing something interesting. Gabe's doing something that we need. And so next thing I knew, I ended up on like the education committee, which is like the guys who host the annual symposium.
And were you voluntold or volunteered?
So I got a letter in an email that was like, it was from the Grand Master, and it was like, recommending you for the education committee and this and that. And I was like, huh. And committees are a big thing. So I was like, what?
If they work, like, if they're a working committee, because there's a lot of there's a lot of BS committees out there too.
100%. So, and I think those guys were smart enough to say, like, we see where our committees are now. Mm-hmm. What do we want them to be? And I tell people, like, be careful, like, who you vote for. Like, even with me, when I demitted from my a lodge in California, or here in Sacramento, to a different lodge, I told this other lodge, be careful. Like, just because I'm a past master, just because I love Masonry, like, you have to understand, I'm ambitious. Like, like, I'm ready to do things. I want to help take over in the positive way, to help influence the world. Like, that's where I'm at. Who's with me? So I think they saw that. I ended up on the education committee, to where now it has evolved from like, this is how we've always done it, one symposium a year. Now we want to be the go-to for all things education in California. Like, we want to be, if a lodge is looking for, how do you budget education into your program? Like, who do I call? Call Gabe, call Jairo or Dogger, one of the guys, Adam Hannon, anybody. We'll all show you how to do it. In addition to having, the list of like the Masonic scholars within California. I personally think we have a huge talent of Masons in California.
Untapped?
Untapped. 100% untapped. And I'm like, guys, this is the time. It's okay to be like, hey, I'm a Mason. And like, I've been studying on this, like help inspire somebody, right? And so, because those things usually lead to
Be a
great.
catalyst for change.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
We all have to be change agents. No, whether you go to lodge 3 times a month, or you do a silly podcast, or you do a cool blog, we can
Yeah.
all do something to help the craft. And by using the old and new tools that are in front of us, right? Including
Yeah.
a new tool is a new member, right?
Very
Put them to
true.
work. Put them to work.
Yeah, very true. Yep, and that's one of the concepts that I'm having for the bigger topic, as far as like what a new lodge or what a modern lodge looks like. It's really understanding the talents of those people, and then in placing them in positions that will help your lodge. You know, a lot of guys, I've seen it. I love masonry. I've traveled to many lodges, I'm sure, as you have, and throughout many different jurisdictions, and I feel like a lot of people are waiting on somebody to lead them. And I'm like, guys, nobody's going to lead us, bro. You got to lead yourselves.
You go
Right.
kick the
And
door down yourself, and people will run through it with you. You might have to be the
right.
breacher, but people will run
Yeah.
behind you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I told, so this week has been interesting. And so I guess if I could digress from, the committees and how I went from two guys who were very influential in masonry. One of them ended up being, the Grand Master of Masons in California, to being on now several different committees, to where I'm flattered when I hop on these committee meetings and they ask for my opinion. I'm like, I'm just Gabe from Sacramento, but it's interesting. And maybe, and I love working with guys who are equally, impressive and equally like ambitious. And like I was talking last night, I get to work with people who are like, here's what I've done, A, B, C, and D. And you're like, oh my goodness, like I've only done A and B. Like I got to step my game up, right? Like people are dependent. So maybe I've been spoiled this year working with like the super Masons in Grand Lodge, right? And
But
so,
doesn't that make you
but
better? I mean, you can play on a JV team and be a great
sure.
JV player, or
Mhm.
you can be the best JV player and come on the varsity side, and all of a sudden you're going to improve, because you're only going to get as
Yeah.
good as the people. What's the old adage my dad used to always say? You're only as good as the company you keep. So if we keep JV status, we're JV.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so it's been really great to also open up and be okay with I'm a super humble guy. I don't like to be, the guy that says, I'm always like, look at the team, look at the team. It's not me. Like, I just happen to be the guy with the crazy idea to say, like, I think this might work. So fast forwarding through the committees, and then I receive a phone call. Actually, so my wife and I, we were dating 2 or 3 years at this time. Actually, we hadn't got married just yet. And so I took her to our first annual communication.
Oh
The
my
annual
God,
communication in
were you
California.
trying to break up? That sounds
Yeah.
terrible.
So, so I've been to annual communications here in California before, and they've always been really fun. And I was single, and I was like, I wish I had somebody who would appreciate this, who would dress up, who would come to the gala with me, like who would enjoy this. And so, oh my goodness, I'm so happy that, like, by divine intervention, as you may call it, like that her and I ran into each other so organically. I wasn't even looking, I was not on the market. Anyways, so I took her with me, and as we were crossing the Bay Bridge into San Francisco, it was in the weekend that they were having the Blue Angels air show.
Okay.
And so we see rip roaring, or these four Blue Angel 4 F-16s flying by, and there's a C-130 flying over the other bridge. And I go, babe, this is how they escort Masons into annual communication. Just joking with her, right? So she was like, no, it's not. Anyways, we had an amazing time. We went to the gala, introduced her. Anyways, the current Grand Master, which is Jishan Matroka, Grand Master of California, pulled me to the side. It was a one of those, they had a masquerade, theme party. So everybody's in their tuxedos, and they have their masquerade. And I hate to even allude, but it looked like a very Eyes Wide Shut. If you were walking,
Oh, I
Eyes
was
Wide
thinking
Shut.
that all day, and I was like, no, it's
Dude,
too
it was
close
crazy.
to all the stuff going on with Diddy. I can't even say it.
Yeah, I know. But it minus the craziness, because Masons they're all just great. Like, I
Yeah.
wish and I can't wait. California Masonry is starting something new. We're voting on something new this year that might change the entire perception of Masonry for the entire world next year. And we'll get into that. But so anyways, so there was no eyes wide, but it felt very eyes wide shut-esque. And so he comes and at that point he was the maybe the junior grand warden or something like that. And he pulls me aside, him and his wife. And his wife, it was almost like it was scripted. She pulls my wife to the side, or fiance at the time, to the side, and then him with his mask on looks at me. He's like, I'm gonna be, the Grand Master coming up. I've seen who you are. And again, I had no idea he knew who I was. I'm just Gabe from Sacramento at this point. Told me he liked what I was doing. He had a confidence in me, and he asked me to serve in his line. And I was like, I'm honored. Are you, I was looking around, like, are you, because I'm a twin. So I was like, are you, like, my brother's an entered apprentice, I think, but far removed from Masonry. But I was looking around because I was like, how can he? So I was super flattered, and found out, the next year that he wanted us as the stewards, right? I'm the Senior Grand Steward. And so, which was perfect because my wife loves to decorate. She loves to host. And again,
not afraid to work. I love it.
Yeah, not afraid to work. Yeah. But because she met those people, she met the Masons' wives who told her, hey, it does suck sometimes. You might be the one cooking dinner on a Wednesday night, Thursday night. He might leave on a Saturday, or he might ask you to go to a boring installation. There's a lot of things that the ladies and the partners will sacrifice to be with a Mason, but that only really kind of sharpens that Mason. So I'm proud to go everywhere with her. Matter of fact, she is the first non-Mason lady that's in a committee with me in California this year. She's the part of the Public Education Advisory Committee with our philanthropical branch of Masonry, which is called California Masonic Foundation. That has partnerships with the Masons for Myths, with all the Major League Baseball teams. And so she's in that circle, one, because she's in education. And that's the reason why they were like, Gabe, there's this opportunity for education. And I was like, I'll put my name on it, but just know that my wife's going to be running this. This is her world. This is education's her. So anyways, it's a way for us
to have to put the right people in right places, right? And to succeed, if you're going to put me on the committee to put a space shuttle into orbit, I'm not your guy, but I can find that guy or girl.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's I want to kind of go a direction. So California, if anybody is on social media, you guys came out of the gates. There's all the messes that you're putting that are on, TikTok and on shorts and on reels. And it's pretty inspiring, and it's cool, and it's clever, and we get to see inside of all these lodges. So let's move this direction.
Sure.
Let's say you're going to build a lodge today. What do you think? Yeah. What's the concept of a new lodge in your eyes today in California? What should it look like? What do we need to have? And everybody else, take your pen and paper, because Gabe's about to speak the truth.
Well, thank you so much for that. And so I guess the short version is we need to be mobile. And I'll get to that momentarily. So this week, I've had to have the conversation with 2 different lodges. With my current lodge, to tell them that, hey, next year I'm starting a new lodge. And even though they're in Sacramento and I'm in the city called Elk Grove, which is about 20 miles away, about 25 minutes away.
A lot of Tesla owners there in Elk Grove.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's another a social cue that I take into consideration with building a lodge. Please don't get me wrong, but so I knew that I had to tell them, because one, of course, I demitted from my lodge and then joined this lodge, and they accepted me as a brother. And it's an all Filipino lodge, but a very traditional, not like a new version or a new era. They're a very traditional, by the book, CMC, California Masonic Code type of lodge, which is great, because I only like to be around very straight people, right? And so I had to tell them, hey, I'm building a new lodge, because half of those guys live in the city of Elk Grove. And so I was like, hey, I don't want this to interfere with the operations of your lodge. You guys are doing your thing. Thank you for, letting me kind of be a Mason and supporting me while I was in Grand Lodge this year. Thank you guys for everything. But Masonry needs to evolve, and I need to be that guy to help do it. If nobody else is doing it, I have to do it.
Sure.
So then, and then the night before, I went to the lodge here in Elk Grove, and there's been one lodge in Elk Grove for the past 160 years. And they've been, so when I admitted my original lodge, I was hanging out with the Elk Grove Lodge while having friendships with the Filipino Lodge in Sacramento. So those guys, I'm sure in Elk Grove are like, oh man, Gabe's like great guys there, like great guys. The master there is an amazing dude. The past masters are amazing guys. Like it's a new era. It's guys like us who are like, I want to shake this is how we've always done it and do something new. So what I did was I went to their stated meeting. After the state, I asked the worshipful, I said, worshipful, can I make a presentation after stated meeting? He was like, are you sure during? Do you want to do during? No. Do you want to do it before? Nope. I'm going to do it after.
Close. Yep.
He was like, okay. He's like, I can't guarantee everybody's going to be here. It's like, okay. So at this point, we had a couple of Grand Lodge officers. Well, a couple of our operational Grand Lodge officers, I'll say. So we had those guys there. Nobody knew what I was going to do. So what I did was like, I said, I want to show you guys kind of what I do as a steward in the Grand Lodge, California. So very simply, like, because my wife is all about like the small details make the experience, right? Like, so I was laying out a white tablecloth, right? Because it's a very kind of, they're getting ready to move into a new lodge, which they're in a unique situation because they do have the opportunity to shake the old and start the new. But anyways, the location that they're in now is very, it's
okay. It's fine.
It's okay. It's fine. It works. So I said, I'll set up a white, the table, I put a white cloth, I put a little table runner down, I put a couple bottles that have like the lighting in it. Very simple. If I could do it, anybody could do it.
Sure.
And I was like, the reason why we do this is because like, I want to show you that like, just because I have drink, like, I want to show you that this is how much I love you, that I love you so much that even if I'm pouring you drinks, I want to make sure that the area is nice because that's how much I love you. So we're getting into it and like, the philosophy of like why we do things for each other. And then I jumped into like the future of Masonry. What does that look like? How does it look for a community that went from 75,000 people pre-COVID to now 220,000 people post-COVID? Looking at the demographics and understanding that we had an influx of people who coming from the Silicon Valley, people from the Bay Area, because these were places where you could buy a home. You could work online. I joke.
Yeah.
I can work
and you can afford to live there.
Absolutely.
For now.
And so for now, yeah. So we had an influx of different demographic, like like the business type of people that weren't necessarily accounted for in Elk Grove before. So now I'm like, oh, we have a whole demographic. Now there's shopping centers that are being built. There's new things that are kind of coming up, and I'm like, Elk Grove still hasn't understood that or hasn't embraced it. And I could tell by the infrastructure of the city, which is one reason why we need. So, anyways, I told him, I said, I want to capture those people. 80% pushback in that room. I'll tell you, I felt so uncomfortable. It was walking in the lion's den, and I'm a Grand Lodge officer with experience, right? And I don't go around saying I'm a Grand Lodge officer.
Sure.
I want to walk in with the 2 sticks.
Yeah.
I don't do that. But like, so, and one of the bros was like, hey, like a newer Mason, and it was like, the traditions of Masonry. Why don't we keep things together? And I'm like, bro, I'm all about the tradition. With the exception of 1 or 2 guys in this room, I don't think there's anybody else who understands the traditions of Masonry, or at least will tell you other than. So I'm trust me, bro. Trust me.
But that's a cop-out excuse. A lot of Masons. So I did an episode, that what if we just burn Masonry down and start over? Now, it had nothing to do with taking the ritual away, but the cop-out is, well, you're just, you're taking away all the tradition. No, I didn't say that. So you can burn it down and leave the tradition, but how we get there. So if you're going to use that cop out, all I'm going to ask you is this: get out of my way so I don't have to run you over.
Yeah.
Because it's it's a cop out to me. Yeah.
And that podcast that you were just talking about was the inspiration for me to really reach out to you, because I was like, oh my God, like I share so much of his opinions and views. I was like, we have to talk. We have to talk. And so, and with that, like the same way, philosophy as far as leadership, it's like lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Like that's it. Like those are the 3 options. Yep. And so I told him, I go, I want to capture this new, this new demographic of people here. I'm gonna, and I go, I'm not married. So I guess if we can highlight something, it's like this. Masonry in the future should not be married to a big cathedral-esque building. Why? You can't even manage them. They're underwater. They look, a lot of them need some love. They need some Jesus out there.
Well, let me back you up on that. We at one time, our lodge in Wichita, Kansas, was the largest in the world. We're number 2
Wow.
in the United States.
Wow.
We battle between 1 and 2. We don't own a building. We got money, but we don't own a building because, to me, people tie masonry to a building, and you know what? They're going to sink with that damn ship, and they're going to ride it down because they don't want to raise dues. They don't want to do this. They're going to ride that sucker to the bottom. And you're the lady on Titanic holding on to that because you didn't get on the damn lifeboat that was right there for you. So your pride and your ego is going to screw up masonry if you keep thinking we're a damn building.
Yep. Tough love, gentlemen. Tough love, and that's what we need. We need tough love. So my concept of masonry, again, moving away from the building. So we know that we have to meet at one place at least once a month, right? That has to be like through the bylaws. Fine. So I saw that the Elk Grove recently made this new community center. It's called District 54 or District 56. Modern, state-of-the-art. There's a veteran center in there. There is an aquatic park. There are plans to make like this nature reserve in the back that like it's going to be attracting a lot of people. In front of it is going to be, within the next couple of years, is what's called a lifestyle center that has like condos and restaurants and X, Y, and Z.
All an audience right there for masonry.
And I'm not thinking about today. I'm thinking about 5 years
Sure
from
you
now.
are.
And so, and not just the fact that like, oh, City Hall, the mayor's office is moving right into District 56. Well, guess who her neighbors are going to be? It's the Masons of California. And guess how much resources the Masons of California have? I don't want to just be a lodge. I want to be a partner. I want to manage this city. I want to influence this city. And I say that because I recently heard a story, and the details might be a little bit incorrect, but a lodge in Glendale, California, had a relationship with the city council there. Did a couple things together, installations, blah, blah, blah. You know, they had a relationship. Anyways, one of the council members had ran for mayor in a different district or a different city. And I want to say Burbank. Anyways, she won. She gets there to her city council and realizes, oh my God, like it's horrible. And the first people she called was at Glendale Lodge. Please come show my committee what harmony means. Show them how to work together. That's the type of influence we as Masons need in the community.
That's pretty cool.
I need somebody to be like, here's my problem, Masons. You guys have a strong network of like-minded men from all across different walks of life, from the plumbers to the attorneys to the entrepreneurs and business owners. And our resources reach so far. And I think we forget that. And I think we're too damn humble to be like, hey, I've got guys that can help you out. I've got guys that can help make this better.
In addition, that speaks to the language of the new generation. You know, we talk about generational communication. A reason maybe some of the younger men aren't joining today because they want to be part of something bigger, and they see masonry as an old message that we're behind. What are we doing? So this actually sets the stage for the next generation coming in that want to be part of something bigger.
100%. 100%. Yeah. And kind of go back to another story. So a couple of weeks ago, we were doing a 150-year anniversary in this very small town in this very deep part of the Central Valley in California. It is all, agriculture, and it's been there for hundreds of years. And go to the lodge, and it's this building that was built at that time. So it's this gorgeous, like 1800s California, like you feel the history of that building. And I was like, oh, it took us a second to get here, which was interesting. Like they had a couple streets closed, and I'm like, this is a small town of, I don't know, 4,000 people. Like, why is the streets closed? Anyways, we park, and I see a parade going by. And there's people the city's hosting that same 150-year anniversary. And I felt so sorry for that lodge. I said, why are we not there? Why are we not leading that? Why is that city not including the Freemasons in that 150-year anniversary? It saddened me. And that's when I was like, you know what? We have to. I'm tired of going around to different lodges and shaking hands and being like, you guys are doing good when nobody's doing anything. They're contributing money. Money is numbers on paper. We need to be out there. We need to be implementing the God-given talents that we have. I tell people, like, everybody wants to be a Mason, so it's time to do Mason stuff, right? And those working tools are heavy, but we have to do it. And so going back to the concept of a new lodge, so once a month I have to meet at that place. Perfect. I have a 4-week kind of thought process for what we, and people want, so guys of the younger age are looking for something deeper in life. So they want education. So like, for instance, week 1 is going to be like, theory of the theory of what we're going to be studying. And we'll say that month we're going to be working on the second degree. So that first week is theory of that second degree. Second is, something else. The third is practical application. And that fourth week is going to be execution, right? So there's a progressive, like, here's where we start, here's where we go, and then I want, teams to really kind of build and cultivate the newer. So I want everybody physically working. So that's that, but we don't have to do it at that building. I could do education at the library. I could have an education meeting at the beautiful
You can
sushi
actually have a
restaurant.
lodge meeting anywhere if you get the Grand Lodge for a dispensation to move your charter. People get so caught up on that. We have lodges in Kansas that they are legit lodges, have no building, and each month, sometimes, so we have some what they call occasional or quarter, they will do lodge around the state.
And so that's the concept. My thing is I want to do, and not necessarily the state meeting, which although it is an interesting idea, and thank you for now planting that seed in my mind to have state meetings. Anyways, but to not just to be out there, but to be out there. Like I'm telling guys, especially for my lodge, the current lodge I'm in, I'm like, listen, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. I'm looking for about 20 guys, because I think we need 15 people to charter a lodge. I can find 15 guys within the next week and a half. That's too easy, but I'm looking for the right guys. I'm looking for the guys who are committed,
the doers,
who have a vested, but who have something vested in the community of Elk Grove too, right? So like what I did was I pulled a database for all the Masons in California, and and data is king, right? So I filtered everything down 15-mile radius of my zip code. And then I removed, and I hate to say it, but I removed the 70-plus-year-old guys. We have to move forward. We have to move forward. So I removed some of that, and I filtered it down to a very small group. And in this group, I was like, I know about 12 to 15 of this 150 member list. And I'm like, the rest of these guys, I don't know. Who are these guys? So I started thinking and thinking. I sat on it for about a week, and I'm like, I bet you, because they're still paying dues. These are guys who wanted something out of Masonry, joined Masonry, and didn't find it. And
they believe it enough to still pay their dues, but they're not involved.
So what I'm doing is I'm not taking because I don't want to build a lodge where just Masons come hang out. No, I don't have time to hang out.
Yeah.
I want Masons who are going to city hall meetings at night, to ones that are going to Chamber of Commerce meetings at night. I want a freaking booth at the food truck thing every week on Wednesday nights. That's what I want. I think we need to be those guys. I want to be the cooler, older uncles of Elk Grove. And I think that, and I hate to say it too, we have to bring the coolness of Masonry back.
Yeah.
It's guys like
dare I say sexiness.
Sexiness, right? Absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
We need Justin Timberlake at your new lodge to sing Bring Sexy Back.
Yes.
I don't have that, but somebody, Justin Timberlake, if you ever watch this podcast, come and help my brother Gabe out.
Bring it back, Justin.
Oh man.
But that's what we need. And just having conversations with my daughters or my kids, it's like, what do you think Masonry is? Well, it's just a bunch of old guys. I'm like, no. Now having seen us working with all my closer friends who are at Grand Lodge now, and they're guys our age. What do you think of them now? And they're like, oh, they're it's kind of cool. It's different than what I thought. And these are teenage kids who are saying this. But we have to do better at putting ourselves out there, at saying, we are a younger lodge. I'm proud of it. So that's the one of the concept too, right? So I don't want to have a lodge over 30 people. There's too many opinions, too many things that can happen. I don't even know if I want to do more than 5 or 6 degrees a year. Because I really want to give people the
you want the quality, not the quantity.
Right. And I'm okay. I'm a huge proponent of guarding your West Gate. There's no, we're 6 months and then we're going to give him a petition, or he's got to come to 3 consecutive exits. I'm like, no, dude, I need to know inside and out who you are. I need to know everything from, what you do for work to your, I need to know that if Erin and I, my wife and I, were to need a babysitter on a Friday night, that we could count on you to watch our kids.
Yeah.
That's our litmus test.
Yeah. Well,
You
it's
got to
literally
act
that
like that.
it's an adage that we like to, I use a lot in the military. We refer to it as wife, life, and wallet. If I can trust the
Ah,
person with my wife, life, and wallet, I'm good.
right?
So
Yeah.
that really, I mean, you can't really make that our mantra, but at the end of the day, when you're signing that, because we've all seen people, oh yeah, give me a second line on this, and they don't know the dude. That I've been part of it as well. I'm just going to tell you. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're going to ink that petition, in my opinion, wife, life, and wallet, do you trust them with
Mm,
that? Because
I
we all
love
know
that.
people I will trust with my wife, with my life, or
Mhm.
my wallet. But there's some people I won't trust with my wallet. Damn sure won't trust them with my wife.
Yeah.
So if they can't
Yeah.
hit all three, they're
Yeah.
I don't think they're a Mason to me.
100%. 100%. So I'm huge on like building a Mason. Like, don't just tell me you want to be a Mason. Everybody wants to be a Mason. It is interesting because I just kind of started getting into the more social media. Like anytime I do something for the Grand Lodge or we go somewhere, like I try to film it, I try to take videos and make a cool little thing just to show people like masonry is cool. Like there are pockets of masonry that's like, oh, these guys are successful. They're going to do something big. And so I want people to see that. I want people to see this not an 80-year-old like retirement like group where everybody's like,
But conversely, there are also what we call the cool older guys. When my
100%.
age starts with a 5, I'm an older guy in my lodge, right? However,
Mm,
but to your point, I mean, the 70-year-olds, there's different gas than, but there's some cool 40s, 50s, there's some
yeah,
cool 60s out there.
100%.
But
Mhm.
to me, that the age and the number are two different things because it's that energy. I want that 30-year-old gassed up energy that's like,
Yes.
let's go.
Yeah. I did a kind of a video on the YouTube channel. It was called like Mason. I don't know if I could say it. It's no
Say
longer really
whatever.
active, but
We
it's called Masons. Yeah. Sorry, it's called Masons of Sac 40. And I haven't uploaded any videos. After I left that lodge, like unfortunately, like Blake and I, as much as I love him, like he's the current master there. And like I told him, I said, I don't hold anything against you. That these were issues that you weren't
Yeah.
capable of solving. I wasn't, and neither was the Grand Lodge, to tell you the truth. It was some interesting stuff that happened. They're like, the perspectives are there, but there's nothing that, so like, that's why I took my brand elsewhere. Like, again, my fidelity doesn't lie to a number of a lodge, it lies to the fraternity herself.
Yep.
So like now when at first when I was a Grand Lodge officer and they were introducing me as a past master of the current lodge that I'm in, never having been a past master, I didn't push back on it because I was like, and I kind of helped make it that way because I was like, I'm my own brand, like so. Anyways, going back to you were talking about like the I think you mentioned something about the ageism, right? Like so, yeah. So I made this video. It was it saddens me because we had this older guy. We were a lodge of like 40s, 30s, and maybe 40s. I think I was the oldest guy. And then we have this guy who's a 50-year member. And I was like, let's throw him a dinner. Let's do the 50-year membership dinner. He comes, his name was John. Anyways, I do a very educational piece on the backstory of what a Masonic funeral is.
Yep.
So John Chappie Lotz was one of those guys. 50-year Mason, he came back, we threw him a dinner, and we fell in love with him. This guy was riding his bike 8-10 miles a day. He was there every Wednesday. He was there to give us guidance in a loving way. He wasn't, this is how we've done it. I installed him and I know he was he was part of the church. And so I was like, would you do us the honor and be our chaplain next year? And he started crying. Like, so his nickname was Chappie. Like that was his, hey Chappie, like that was his thing. And he was one of the boys.
Yep.
And so you're right, 100% you're right. And when I say like age, it's more of the mindset. I'm not looking for, because there's guys
We've
in their
got some
40s.
old 30-year-old, old-minded 30-year-old.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. And those are some guys that I removed from that list too. I'm like, I know who you are and I know your position on masonry and how we've always done it, off the list.
Or they're too
I hate to
much of
say
a
it.
me person and they can't check their ego at the door. The dudes and egos, that kills everything. Dudes and egos.
Yeah.
That's like double
Yeah.
testosterone. It's a bad deal.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I'm like, come on, guy. By the third degree, you should, or after that, you should be like, I mean, in theory. So anyways, so I told these guys, this lodge is not going to be $160 to get in to pay a year. Those days are long gone, my friends.
Thank you.
The initiation fees, the days of $250, freaking long gone, my friends. Initiation fees are probably going to be and again, I don't have the details and numbers just yet. This is things that I've been doing for the past year.
If you had the only vote, what's the initiation fee if you had the only vote?
If I had the only vote, it'd be about $800.
$800?
$500 to $800.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had the only vote, what's the dues?
Yeah, so it'd be $1,200. It'd be $100 a month, contributed monthly. And that's because I want people to and $100 for the guys that are down here, that are the people that came down from tech, that are managing Silicon Valley from Elk Grove. You can afford $100, bro. I know you can. You have 2 Teslas in your front yard. Like, I know you can.
Here's the other thing. If the experience time is the commodity, I talk about it on all the episodes. Time is the most precious commodity. If somebody says today, Byrd, let's do this. Let's go out and make let's go out and make $100,000. How long you need? If you need 90 days, I'll show you how to do a business for $100,000. None of that's hard. So, but time is something we can't recreate, right? So to me, if the experience, and people forget about the experience, Google launched this new thing with their algorithm, the EEAT, it's the expertise, the experience, So if your experience, if my hour and a half to 2 hours at a lodge event isn't worth $100, so let's call it 2 hours. If it's not worth $50 an hour, it's not worth that. That's bullshit, frankly.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's why. And if you're there, it's like, man, this it's not worth the experience for $100. Okay, what would you like to see different? Well, I'd like to see this. Great. I'm going to have you lead that at the next meeting. I will give you all the horsepower you need. You lead it.
Right.
You guide. I'll get you the worker bees. Yeah,
100%. Because I'm all about trial by fire. Maybe that's the military guy in us, right? It's like, you know what? Like we've led you to a certain point. Now you got to fly. You either fly or flop, dude. And hopefully we've placed enough things so that they won't flop. And if they do, we can rescue. But
if they flop, I would argue that's a little bit on us. We have to set them up for success, not for failure. And then
for sure.
And make them roadmap it. This is it. Okay, I've got this, you've got this. Everyone's got their zones, and we know Gabe's got this, Byrd's got this, Chappie's got this, and then there's no bullshit. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And so in finding those guys, and again, to be honest, in between you and I and everybody who's here watching, like I do have.
It's our secret, guys.
I'm like, I do have my reservations and fears for a new lodge. Like, how likely is it to find these guys who want to do it, right? So part of that was like, well, how do I find these 15 guys? And going back to that, so after pulling the data and finding those guys didn't have their experience, I think what I want to try to do, or what I'm going to do, is send a video out to all those guys to say, hey, I want to have a town hall meeting here, and keep it very minimal. Invite them over to the place where I would like to have the lodge, and say, this is your opportunity to do something with Masonry that I know you came in for, but you didn't receive. You're here now. So I'm looking forward, I'm excited, but I'm also scared. Like, what if I hit 0 people? Like, what if 0 people go?
What's it cost you? Nothing.
True.
Right. If you don't do it, you don't know. But the other side to say is, we are going to be an agent of change. And in 150 years, when people look back and say, holy crap, your name's on this charter that you can show your kids, your grandkids, and your community. So do you want to be part of the community, or do you want Masonry just to be out? If you're good with the way Masonry is, this lodge isn't for you. If you want to be an integral part of being in your community and be an agent for change for California Masonry, come this way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because there's some exciting things happening in California Masonry, and it's been such an honor to visit different jurisdictions, to meet people from all walks of life in Masonry, and I don't want to say if it is the recognition that California Masons have. It's like it's crazy. I mean, we're the biggest Grand Lodge. I don't know the differences and comparisons, because I don't compare. Like, a brother in New York is my brother as you would
Right.
be. We're brothers, like to me. So but it's interesting. It's been interesting. And I'm like, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to move our fraternity along. And so I've been super happy and proud to see that like our Grand Lodge leadership, our executive leadership, the Grand Secretary, the Grand Treasurer, like all those guys, they're all in for let's invest in social media. We have to do this, or like what brings Masonry, how do we keep it relevant? And then they give guys like me the opportunity to say, like, make it happen.
Yeah.
So it's very, I love that, and I love that we're starting relationships with other jurisdictions, and although again there's one of the bigger type of things that's happening around us is the women in masonry, right? Well, there's a universal co-masonry organization here that we have invited their Grand Lodge leadership to some of our events. Matter of fact, to our Grand Master's reception at his home lodge, they were there. We did a parade together, and I think he articulates it very well in the sense that like we respect that masonry is happening. At the end of the day, like masonry is happening, it's making that community better. Great. What are you guys doing? Like, how are you? Because we want to do the same thing. We want to just, which is beautiful for our motto of our Grand Master, which is share the light of Freemasonry this year. And so everything that we do, whether you go to the grocery store, whether you a Zoom meeting for business, like it should be a representation of yourself as a Mason.
Yep.
I want people to walk away and be like, God, what is it with Gabe that I can't put my finger on?
Yep.
And if that person's, I probably already engaged them with at some form of like, I'll drop a Mason hint, something there every once in a while for like the really good ones, because we can't solicit membership, but I could sure selectively approach. I could sure be like, hey man, I think whenever you're down here, I want to introduce you to some of my friends.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we need to.
Yeah, one of my co-hosts, Russ Brown, he's one of the best about bringing what he would call his church friends and his Mason friends over for a drink, and it always sparks these great conversations. And oh, what do you do? Oh, what do you do in Los? Well, this is what we do. You can talk about it. Yeah, there's really no secrets, and I always and I almost got kicked out of Masonry because I do the secret handshake to everybody. So I show them what it is. And, I can't be kicked out for showing that handshake. And everyone knows the secret word's peanut butter. So those are just the things that I'm not afraid to talk about. And I'll beg forgiveness once charges come. So, as I'm going
absolutely.
Right. So as I'm going through, you've answered some questions that I have going through. I want to throw something at you. I want to throw a couple of fun things before we kind of tighten up. If there was a magic pill that you could take and you would stay your same age in perfect health for the next 150 years, would you take it and why? You're not prepared for that. I didn't tell you it was
That's
coming.
a deep question. So my instinct says yes. My instinct says, because I was having a conversation last night with my wife's coworker. My wife's a high school counselor, and so she's kind of mentoring a younger 30-year-old counselor, very sweet. We've adopted her as our daughter. Anyway, she holds a Wednesday night Bible study. Young girl, 30 years old, and like so I was asking her, like, how do you keep? So, anyways, as we were talking, I said, you know what, like we are on here for a short period of time, and we have to do as much as we can. We have to understand that, and that's what I said. Masonry helps me connect with divinity. Divinity tells me what I'm supposed to do here.
Yep.
I don't have that much time. So if I could extend that to help the world for as long as I could, I would absolutely do it.
Perfect.
I would absolutely.
Let me give you the counter, which is terrifying. So you're living for 150 years, your age, perfect health is great. You will bury children and grandchildren.
I know.
And now, listen, I believe in the divine side as well. I mean, you always wish you had more time because that's the commodity. And you were like, well, Byrd, you just said that's our commodity. So I'm getting a commodity. I don't know what the right answer is. I instantly thought about it. It's like, hell yeah. I'd love to see kids and grandkids in the future generations, but holy hell, I might have to bury them. And that would be awful, right? As a parent.
It would.
One of the things. So I don't know there is no right answer, but it's something I love to debate. So
and I would hope that Masonry has given us the tool. If that was ever the case, it gives us the tools to understand that that there's something at the end of, and this is just a moment in time.
So if you've seen our podcast before, we throw up what we call the most important question of the podcast, right? And if you haven't seen it, that's fine. You're about to see it. So on the screen, my friend, you're going to see 4 things, 5 things here, but one must go forever. So you've got the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and the Department of Redundancy Department, Coast Guard. So one of these branches has to go forever, my friend. Which one is it and why?
Well, so as much as I love these guys, I've only met a few of them, but I know that historically, when things went sideways, they painted their ships, made them gray, and joined the Navy. So it would be Coast Guard, personally.
Absolutely. So. And again, I'm sure the 150 guys that are in the Coast Guard, I'm sure they're great, but you know what?
I love you guys.
But the Navy, they can just take over your boats and they can go do the stuff you're doing. I know that you're doing a lot of stuff now, and there's serves a purpose, but we needed the Air Force as our taxis. We need you guys. I don't want to be stuck on a boat. So Navy, and you know what? I love kids, so I love the crayon eating Marines. I think you guys, we need you to knock some doors down so you can take the first round for us. So, Gabe,
that's fun.
I absolutely appreciate you coming. Thanks for joining the Old Fashioned Masonic
Cheers
Podcast.
to you.
Cheers.
Thank you.